Jan Fabry. He has already given us a talk in Spark Central a couple of years ago, so now he's back. And we're glad he's back. So if everybody can give a round of applause for Jan. More.
Yes, indeed. So indeed, 2 months ago, I got a mail from Jeroen saying, "Oh, are you Jeroen? I thought you were Gabriel. Okay. Do you want to talk? We have a slot for a lightning talk. Do you want to say something about PHP for PHP developers?" I said, "Yes, I do want to say something. Do you have something to tell?" "Yes, I always have something to tell." I have to confess, it's been a few years since I did anything with PHP. I think 2011. So namespaces, lambdas, don't care about them. Well, it's not really true. I still do a little bit with PHP for the school of my children. I maintain their website. But that's in WordPress, so that's still 2011. All the new things. WordPress is a time capsule. So when you were talking about Symfony 4.3, I said, "Ha! PHP 4.3. I'm already on 5.6. Oh no, Symfony. Symfony, what's that? A composer? Okay, anyway. So back in time, 10 years ago, I did a short stint at the NMBS. They had a big SAP implementation there, and they needed some software to manage the trainings. And of course, because they were still developing the SAP platform, they couldn't do that in SAP. So they did it with PHP. The application is called Assigner. It has number 71, because every program at the NMBS got a number there. And in those days, we used Propel ORM, which is dead. XTS, which is still alive, and we had Wim van der Smissen. So the best things produced by the 2000s, I met him there, and Wim is still around. So we did a lot of fun things there. After a few months, the project the project lead got fired, so I also left. Wim left a few months after me. Assigner, they said, Assigner got its death threat, it will be removed. So whatever, we left it behind us. Went to Mobile Vikings, did development, then operations, and today I do all kinds of stuff. I'm a freelancer, so I'm not hiring. If you want any of my clients, you can have them. But anyway, 6 months ago, I was on a train, and then I met Yuri. Yuri is a friend from back in primary school and secondary school, and Yuri is there. Now, today he works via Ordini. He works at IPTO, which manages the IT of the NMBS. And you remember NMBS and Infrabuild, they got split in 2005. So today, or 14 years later, and they're still splitting it. It's maybe not completely correct, but Yuri is in a small team there who tries to map all applications that exist. And so I told him, all the applications, 71 Assigner, I created that. And he said, "Yeah, it's still around." Okay. 10 years later, and our application is still alive. It survived many project leaders who said, "We will remove that thread, that PHP and MySQL prep will write it in Oracle with SAP," and they never managed to do it. So that got us talking about what makes it that keeps a project alive. Why do some projects survive? Why are other projects already dead before they're finished? So all wisdoms of this talk come from Yuri, and all the stupid stuff comes from me. And the wisdom from Yuri is really simple to summarize. There are 2 rules. Rule number 1 is communicate. As soon as your project goes beyond one person, communication is key. And remember, you versus you in 6 months' time, that's 2 different people. So communication is key. And the second rule, I asked them, is there anything that PHP developers need to know? anything technology related, because he also has an operations viewpoint, like I do as well. Okay, thinking about all the technology in his head. So, okay, rule number 2: get enough sleep. That's really the getting enough sleep, having a clear mind is more important than any technology choice you can make, whether it's front end, back end. We don't care about the frameworks and at the operations level. We don't care about the code because we know it's all crap anyway. So if your technology is not crap, then your code will be crap. And if your code is not crap, then the requirements will be crap. And if the requirements were not crap, then the organization is crap. So if you want to know why in the operations world they do a lot of heavy drinking, that's why. But anyway, what I said, communication is the key between keeping your project alive or letting it die. Because making a first version of a project, that's easy. Making something new that everybody's happy about it, same thing, well, a new project will always solve all problems that you have. It's like a new hire will also always solve all projects that you have. And then the project gets delivered, or the new hire arrives, and then they become part of the organization, and you see, okay, they do. The strange thing is that, yeah, we say this project is bad, we need to rewrite it. For some reason, if you work on back-end code, it has a slow cycle where you say we need to rewrite it. If you live in the front-end world, then you always have to rewrite it. I've never met a mobile developer who entered an organization and did not say, this previous code is crap. Sorry, we'll have to rewrite it because blah, 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 library got changed and blah, 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 interface is new and blah, blah, blah. So for some reason, front-end always changes all the time. But anyway, having a project that dies, that's normal, that's part of life. But the main problem is that most projects don't die. They live on as zombies. They keep existing without anyone knowing whether you really need them, what they really do. But every now and then, somebody has to take a look at it because an error popped up or because a customer asked a question. So then you have to spend time to think about it, take a decision, sometimes take an action. And it's these kind of zombie projects that can really drain lots of energy that can be used somewhere else. And as you can imagine, in a large-scale organization, this multiplies. And I think we can say that NMBS is a large-scale organization. So that's a really big example, but believe me, we also have it in our smaller scales as well. Similar to a garden, you have to weed it from time to time. You have to see what can grow, what can we remove. And of course, a garden is an easy example. You can see the plants. Your software, you can't really see it. So in the operations world, we have something for that. It's not really nice. It's a database with some Perl scripts in front of it, because in the operations world, they still use Perl. But it works. It's a service catalog. And this service catalog, that's the thing you turn to if everything burns down. How can we recreate our environment? So I want to go over a few things that are in there, because it's interesting to have this mindset. This is the reason why operations people come to you and say, I need some documentation. It's not because they hate you. It's because they want to help you, and because they want to prevent you from, you or future you, from having to spend time thinking about things that you know today but you will not remember in a few months' time. First thing there is the owner of the application. Who is responsible for this? If something breaks with it, who can I call and ask questions about it? But that's an application owner, but you also have the business owner. Who is the business? Who wants this thing? But also know who can keep an eye on the requirements, who can tell this is okay or this is not okay. And between us, you have subject matter experts. Those can be the developers who developed the thing, somebody who knows the database, somebody who knows the domain, because sometimes the business owner has some idea about how something is implemented, but the subject matter expert, they really know what's in there and what's not in there. So that's about the people. There are a few administrative things. Where's the documentation? Assuming you have some documentation. where's the code? Because remember, there are many projects out there that still run, but we have no idea where the code is. Are there backups? How do we do monitoring? Licenses, this is overlooked a lot of time, where developers just say, okay, I use this library, I use this program, and then they develop the thing and they say, okay, put it in operation. And then somebody, annoying person from the operations department, looks at the license and said, you can only use this in non-commercial environments. We'll have to pay for a license, and if we want to do that, it's 10,000 euros per month. Did you calculate that into the budget? Oh no, too bad. But it works on my machine. Oh yeah. Some maintenance on stuff you buy. If you buy a fancy library, how long will it be maintained? Yeah, of course, the usual stuff. Where do we host it? What's the status of it? The SLA. What is the recovery time objective and the recovery point objective? And that's a really good way to know how important this application. Of course, all our customers, for example, if you're a web development company, all our customers expect that their application is the most important thing in the world, but it's not. So sometimes if you pay peanuts, don't expect us to jump up in the middle of the night and create 99 point blah 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 uptime. In some cases, some projects are less important than others. One small detail, I think, I'm not really sure I'm allowed to talk about it, but apparently the huge main Oracle database at NBS that stores all the information about the operational data that makes sure that your train is running. Until a while ago, it was running not in a clustered environment anymore because that broke down, and backups also broke down. So I think the operations team just lit some candles. But it's fixed by now. But then two other things that are really important, because the first thing is that the administration and blah blah blah. How does this thing you created here, how does it connect to other stuff? What does it depend on? And so if you have a fancy microservice-oriented architecture, what other fancy microservices do you need up in the air before your thing can run? But also stupid things like, do you need to send mail? Do you do it with SendGrid or with Mandrill or whatever? Okay, who has the keys to that? Who manages those things? What things depend on our application? Because if we go down, who will complain? If it goes down and nobody complains, then keep it down. But the most important question is, why do we have this thing in the first place? And that's described from the business perspective. Actually, what I just said. If we would not have this, what would happen? And then you'll see that there are many things that can just, that nobody really cares about, or that we just need to take a decision and say, kill this off. Maybe we're keeping this one thing up in the air for that one customer that is annoying, but if he's really annoying, get rid of him. And then you will be happy again. Okay, so you need to document these things a little bit. Doesn't have to be a lot. Just write this down, what you know now. Write it down at the times when you're blocked towards something, because writing it down will give you a fresh perspective as well. And the test for your documentation is, you write something down, let a colleague read it, and if he can explain it back to you, then it works. If there are some things that they don't understand, don't explain it to him, write it down, and then repeat the cycle. But of course, optimization is the best documentation, so your deployments and your building and blah, 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 if you can automate that, all the better. So that's at the highest level. And then a few things at the code level, because as we said, we don't really care, at the operations level, we don't really care that much about the code. Only where you expose it to is where you have to configure something. So to keep the operations happy, don't use hard-coded variables. That still happens, and there are still, with PHP it's a bit different because it's a scripted language, so it's easy to go to the code, but there are many environments still out there with running some compiled version of something with a hard-coded string referring to a database. So then people will have to do stupid tricks with DNS to make sure that it works. Don't do that, please. So make sure the configuration is extractable, because we don't want to dive into your code to change something. If you do that, give it a little bit of structure in how you name things. Don't, if we need to configure the database and we need to provide username, password, and database name, don't give them completely random names or in different locations. So a little bit of structure is good, a little bit of code convention is good. Don't care about the overall picture, just make sure that you agree in your team and that you agree per project. Don't fight existing conventions, don't worry too much about that. If you're integrating with other applications, an interesting thing there, don't take responsibility about information that you get from somebody else. So if you import data from another system, then make sure that they are the owner of the system, because as soon as you allow your user to edit the data in your system as well, for example, if you import events from the cultuur database, does somebody still use the cultuur databank? Yeah, uit in Vlaanderen. Yeah, voilà. Make sure that they are the main owner of the system. As soon as you let people edit the data in your location, then you will be owner. And it takes some responsibilities, because what if you do a new import and you override data, blah, blah, blah. Of course, as soon as you interface with someone else, assume chaos on the other side. Everybody is stupid, including you. So don't assume that something that looks like a primary key is a primary key, because they will probably, next time you do your import, they'll have two records with the same keys. There are ways to solve it. You can have an anti-corruption layer if you follow, I think that's the main driven design that talks about that, to make sure that you have your clean world inside, chaos on the outside. One pet peeve of us as well, if it's about data sets, let the database handle it. Databases are really good at managing data, at executing scripts. So don't, what was Wim's example? Don't let your one Drupal page run 5,000 database queries, or don't let it get all the data and do your paging in memory on the PHP side. Learn a bit about your database. Then while you're doing it, distribute your knowledge, train each other, take time to explain something to someone else, how you do something, but even more important, how you do something, why you do something, because in the end we will not care about what you did. We can see what you did in the code. We want to know why you did something. Talk about it, learn from each other, see what the standards say, see how you can apply them to your situation, but also if you don't agree, do it different, but with some reading about it. So that's about the code level. And then coming back to your own personal level, or in the team, do your Agile and your Scrum, but make sure that you're the master and you're not the slave of the system. But don't just throw away the baby with the bathwater. There are some really good reasons why Agile and Scrum work. So if they don't work in your, you know why not. But even with all the structure, take a good time to communicate with your team. So, Vettige Vrijdag. Can you explain?
Greasy Friday.
Greasy Friday. The reason that is to make sure that all the things that do not fit in your nice structure, in your retrospective, in your standard, blah blah blah, degrees of Vettige Vrijdag, make sure that they can still be set and that you know each other. So the grease is not in the food, it's in the grease between. No, that does not work. One big time sink, maybe more in big organizations, are meetings, of course. So try to minimize the meetings. But really, there are some really good techniques for that. Look them up. I've had one training about it, and it was wonderful. 5 great things about efficient meetings. I forgot all about them. No. The main one is a meeting is an organized conflict of ideas. So make sure that you have a goal for your meeting. You know, we need to solve this problem, because so many meetings are just talking. not knowing. In the end, if you can't say whether your problem was solved or not, then it was really a good meeting. So everybody is welcome to your meeting, but don't invite people who don't need to be there. Don't use your meeting to communicate information that everybody needs to know, because in the end, it will make sure that people will go to the meeting anyway in case you see something that I won't miss. So just have good meeting notes for that so everybody can read them. And in large organizations or organizations undergoing change, make sure that your communication is reliable. Give people knowledge about the long-term strategy or also the stupid short-term thing. If you say, this weekend we will work on database, blah, 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 communicate it to everybody, because you will lose so much time if you bring down a system for maintenance and people don't know about it and depend on it. So communication again is key. But also the long-term programs. So saying, we will migrate this application to this new system, so don't spend time changing a lot of it. Knowing that can make a big difference in the motivation of you as a developer. Knowing why can't I touch this? What's the reason for doing this? And then coming back to really yourself as a personal level, take care of yourself, because you are not a code monkey. You have to combine your work with your life. Your work is not something that it should not be a hindrance to you. The work you do should be something that propels you forward. It should be. We have the privilege that we do really interesting work, so be sure that you keep up that spirit. A problem is that many people, and I think people that spend evenings coming to meetings like this, will have the same mindset, in that we want to help people, but it can go too far and people can think that's the way it goes. So make sure that you set your boundaries. Make sure that you say, okay, you ask me for this report tonight at 4 o'clock and you need it tomorrow by 9. I can do this, but it will require this and this and this. Is that okay for you or not? And don't be afraid to say no from time to time, because that's the only way where you will get respect for your time and for yourself. So communicate about your needs. And maybe if you say something, say, okay, I can write that report, but then my children will have to go to bed alone and my wife will leave me and blah, 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 blah. Maybe the other party will get a bit creative and say, okay, in that case, we don't need it like this, blah, blah, blah. Share your knowledge, not only at in the workspace, but for example, give a PHP Limburg talk. As you can see, I'm here, so the bar is really low. It's a really nice way to try out whether you know something or not. Share your enthusiasm. For example, I'm a Code Dojo coach, and it's really fun to do, where you teach children how to program, teaching them the basics of programming. Is a really fun thing to do, and we're always looking for new coaches all over Belgium. And of course, the final comment, or repeating the final bit of advice, make sure you get enough sleep. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Jan. Great talk. I will go set up the quiz, and then we can start. So you can maybe start up your Kahoot app or that's it.